when my son said, "Honey, take Mom's card, there's $130,000 on it. Treat yourself." I felt my heart stutter, not from pride, but from something colder, sharper, because I didn't have a card with that kind of money. At least I didn't think I did. It was a bright morning, one of those rare ones when the house smells of coffee and hope. I was at the kitchen counter, peeling oranges while sunlight slipped across the tiles. The radio played faintly old songs, the kind that remind you how fast life runs. My son, Daniel, was on the phone in the next room, laughing with his wife, Amanda. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but when you live in the same house as your grown child, you hear things you sometimes wish you hadn't. "Yeah, babe," he said, still chuckling. "Take Mom's card, the one with her name on it. There's like $130K sitting there. She doesn't even use it." Silence. Then his voice softened. "No, it's fine. She won't notice. Just get what you need." I remember the orange slipping from my hand. It hit the floor, rolled beneath the table, and I stood there frozen, the scent of citrus and disbelief thick in the air. I didn't confront him right away. You see, mothers don't jump to anger. We pause, we observe, we wait for the truth to come to us, wrapped in its own timing. And Daniel, my only son, my baby who once refused to sleep without holding my finger, he had never given me reason to doubt him. At least, not until that morning. Before I tell you what happened next, I should tell you about us, about the kind of family we were before money started whispering between us. Daniel was my pride. After his father passed, it was just the two of us against the world. We didn't have much, just a little house, one car that coughed in the winter, and dreams too big for our small kitchen table. I worked at a local clinic as a receptionist, smiling at strangers while my feet ached and my heart longed for home. Daniel studied hard. He wanted to make something of himself, and when he did, I felt like every sacrifice had been worth it. He became an engineer, the kind of job you tell your relatives about with a full chest. He married Amanda 2 years later, a woman who could light up a room with her laughter, or at least that's how I used to see her. When they moved back in with me after his company downsized, I told myself it was temporary. "Just until we get back on our feet," Daniel said, and I meant it when I told him he could stay as long as he needed. A mother's house should always have space for her child. Amanda helped around the house sometimes. She was sweet at first, offering to cook or do laundry. But little by little, her help turned into advice, and her advice turned into comments. "Maybe you should stop working, Mom. Enjoy life a bit. Daniel worries about you handling money. Maybe let him take care of your bills." It always came with that bright smile of hers, the kind that hides a shadow if you look closely enough. That morning, after I overheard the call, something inside me wouldn't rest. I walked to my room, closed the door, and opened the small drawer where I kept my wallet and old bank cards. There it was, my savings account card. The one I hadn't touched since my husband's death, the one Daniel had helped me set up years ago to make things easier. He'd told me he'd managed the online banking part. I wasn't tech-savvy, and I trusted him completely. That trust suddenly felt like a weight on my chest. I sat on the edge of my bed, holding that small piece of plastic, tracing the embossed numbers with my thumb. Could there really be that much money in there? 130,000? I had worked my whole life, but after hospital bills, the mortgage, and small help I'd given Daniel during college, I couldn't imagine where that amount had come from. Unless something wasn't what I thought it was. That night, over dinner, I watched them both carefully. Amanda was talking about a new boutique she wanted to open. Daniel listened wit. The kind of attention he used to give his school projects, half pride, half excitement. They looked happy, united, and for a moment, I wondered if maybe I'd misheard. Maybe he was joking, maybe it was nothing. But then Amanda said, "Dan, once the transfer clears, I'll put the deposit down for the space." He nodded. "Mom won't even notice. Right, Mom?" Both of them turned to me, smiling. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. "Notice what?" I asked softly. Amanda's smile faltered just a little. "Oh, just the, new place we're thinking of renting for the shop." Daniel reached over, patting my hand. "You'll love it, Mom. You've been saying we should do something together. It's for us." He looked sincere. Maybe he even believed it, but I could feel something twisting underneath a hidden current pulling my trust out from under me. Later, when they'd gone to bed, I couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you hear every thought you've tried to bury. I went to the living room, turned on the lamp, and pulled out the small envelope I'd kept for years, my husband's letters, the insurance paperwork, the last traces of a life we'd built together. In one of the folders, there it was, the original statement for the account. It had started with $50,000 from his policy payout. I'd saved it for emergencies for Daniel, if something ever happened to me, but now, $130,000? It didn't make sense. Unless someone had been adding money or moving it around without me knowing, I knew what I had to do. The next morning, after they'd left for errands, I took the bus into town and went straight to the bank. The clerk, a young woman with a polite smile, looked up my account. Her smile faded slightly as her eyes scanned the screen. "Mrs. Lawson," she said carefully, "there have been several large withdrawals and transfers over the past year. Would you like me to print the details?" I nodded, though my throat felt dry. Page after page came out of the printer. Dates, amounts, and names I didn't recognize. Transfers to something called Avia Holdings. 10,000. 25,000. 18,500. My hands trembled. The air in the bank felt thinner, like all the oxygen had been pulled out. The clerk hesitated. "Is everything all right, ma'am?" I folded the papers and whispered, "Not yet, dear, but it will be." That night when I returned home, Amanda greeted me at the door with her usual bright voice. "Oh, Mom, you're home late, everything okay?" I smiled back, matching her tone. "Just ran some errands." Inside, Daniel was on the couch, scrolling through his phone. He looked up briefly, grinning. "You look tired, Mom. You should let me handle more of your finances, less stress for you." I smiled again. "You're right, son, less stress sounds nice, but inside, I was shaking not from fear, but from the quiet certainty that I was no longer the helpless old woman they thought I was. Something had been taken from me, something deeper than money, and I intended to get it back. Over the next few days, I moved like someone half awake, smiling when spoken to, nodding in the right places, cooking dinner like nothing was wrong. But inside, I was quietly piecing together the puzzle of my own life. Every time Daniel left his laptop open, my eyes flicked toward it. Every time Amanda took a phone call outside, I memorized her tone, bright, careful, almost rehearsed. The pieces didn't fit yet, but they were starting to whisper the outline of a secret I wasn't meant to know. Still, I kept playing my part, the gentle mother, the grateful host, the woman too naive to understand online banking. It's funny, isn't it? How easily people mistake love for blindness. 3 days later, I found my first real clue. I'd gone into the guest room, Amanda's so-called office, to leave some folded laundry. The room always smelled faintly of perfume and new paper. She kept a large white desk there, polished to perfection, with little gold accents. It looked more like a showroom than a workspace. As I placed the laundry on the chair, something caught my eye, a thin folder sticking out from under the desk mat. The label read, Avia Holdings. My heart skipped. That was the name from the bank statement. For a long moment, I just stared at it. My hands wanted to reach for it, but my conscience whispered, "Don't go snooping." Then another voice, quieter but sharper, replied, "It's your money. You have a right to know." I slid the folder out slowly. Inside were glossy brochures, rental agreements, and something that made my stomach turn, a business proposal with my name listed as Silent Investor. Silent Investor. I sank into the chair, my hands trembling as I flipped through the papers. Amanda's signature was everywhere, bold, practiced, confident. Daniel's too, right beside hers. But mine, someone had forged it. Perfectly. I stared at the neat loops of Margaret Lawson and felt a deep ache spread through my chest. You know that feeling when your heart doesn't just break, it deflates? Like the air's been let out of something you spent your whole life filling? That's what it felt like. That evening, I cooked dinner as usual, roast chicken with rosemary, Daniel's favorite since childhood. The scent filled the house, warm and comforting, masking the cold storm inside me. I watched him eat, watched Amanda laugh, and wondered how people could share a table with someone they were stealing from. When Daniel reached for the gravy, I noticed something new, a watch gleaming on his wrist. Not the old leather one I gave him years ago, but a sleek, expensive one. New watch? I asked lightly. He smiled, glancing down. Oh, this? Amanda got it for me. Early anniversary gift. Amanda chuckled. We've had a good year, Mom. The shop's taking off faster than we thought. I raised an eyebrow. The shop? Already open? She hesitated just a flicker, then recovered. Almost. Just waiting on a few final transfers. You know how slow banks can be. I smiled, nodding, but I saw it the way Daniel's leg bounced under the table, a small nervous tic he had since childhood. He used to do it when he lied about eating cookies before dinner. Some things don't change, no matter how grown a man gets. That night, I didn't sleep again. Instead, I pulled out the folder I'd hidden under my bed and studied every document until the early morning light touched my curtains. My name, my money, my trust, all tied up in their plans. The next day, I decided to play their game, but on my terms. Daniel, I said at breakfast, stirring my tea, I've been thinking about what you said about you handling my finances. He looked surprised, then relieved. Oh? Really, Mom? Yes, I said softly. You're so good at these things, and I'm getting forgetful lately. Maybe it's time I let you take charge. Amanda smiled over her coffee. That's wonderful, Mom. You'll feel so much lighter. I smiled back. I'm sure I will. Inside, I was memorizing every lie on their faces, the relief, the ease, the confidence of people who think the game is already won. That afternoon, I called an old friend, Lily, who used to work in the bank's fraud department before retiring. She was one of those women who never sugar-coated anything. Margaret, she said after listening quietly, if those signatures are forged, it's serious. You can't let them know you know yet. Keep copies of everything. Every email, every transfer, every note. If they've opened accounts in your name, you'll need proof. I took notes like a student. She paused before hanging up. And Margaret, I know you love your son, but love doesn't mean silence. That sentence stayed with me all day. Love doesn't mean silence. For the next week, I gathered proof. While Amanda was out shopping, I took photos of the documents in her office. When Daniel went jogging, I checked his desk drawer, found a separate credit card under my name. He'd been using it for their business expenses. I saved screenshots of everything, emailed them to a private account, Ted, that neither of them knew about. I even visited the boutique, a small, stylish space downtown, with Aya designs on the window. The woman behind the counter smiled politely. Are you here for Amanda? I nodded. Yes, I'm an investor. Her smile widened. Oh, you must be Mrs. Lawson. We're so grateful for your generosity. My throat tightened. Of course, I whispered. It's my pleasure. When I walked out, the afternoon sun hit my face, and I felt tears sting my eyes. Not just because they'd stolen from me, but because Daniel, my sweet boy, who once used to bring me dandelions from the yard, was now living a lie so big he didn't even see me anymore. That night, something shifted. I heard voices from their room, low at first, then sharper. Amanda was upset. You said she wouldn't notice, Dan. What if she checks the account again? She won't, he said, voice tight. She trusts me. Always has. My heart squeezed. Amanda's tone turned cold. Well, she'd better keep trusting you, because if this blows up, it's your name on everything, not mine. There was silence after that. The kind of silence that tells you exactly what kind of marriage you're hearing through the wall. The next morning, I found Daniel in the kitchen, his eyes tired. He smiled weakly. Rough night? I asked. He laughed a little too quickly. Yeah, just business stress. Amanda's pushing too hard. I think I wanted to reach out, hold his hand, ask him why lie, why take what wasn't yours? But I didn't. Not yet, because now I knew this wasn't just about money, it was about control. And the more they believed I was in the dark, the more careless they'd become. And that's when I decided exactly how I was going to handle it. I wasn't going to yell, I wasn't going to cry, I was going to let them show their true selves right in front of the people they cared about most. It happened on a Saturday afternoon, one of those quiet, golden days when the world feels deceptively peaceful. The house smelled of Amanda's lavender candles and freshly brewed coffee. Daniel was in the backyard, fixing something with his usual focus, while Amanda had her laptop open at the dining table, typing quickly, a faint smile on her lips. I was in the kitchen, pretending to flip through recipes, though my eyes kept drifting to her screen. Then I saw it. She was logged into an email account, andaholdings.finance@gmail.com, and on the screen was a message draft addressed to a lawyer. The subject line read, "Final ownership transfer M. Lawson, signature attached." My blood turned cold. I stepped closer, quietly enough that she didn't notice. Her fingers moved fast, attaching a document, the same business registration I'd seen before, but this time I caught the fine print at the bottom. My name was being removed from the company entirely. It wasn't just theft anymore. It was erasure. I should have felt anger, but what I felt instead was something worse, disappointment that cut deep into my chest. I thought of all the nights I stayed up sewing Daniel's school costumes, the mornings I skipped breakfast so he could have enough lunch money, the years I'd whispered prayers over him. And now, here he was, letting the woman he loved delete me like a line from a document. Amanda noticed me then. She startled, slamming the laptop shut so hard the sound cracked through the silence. "Oh, Mom, I didn't see you there." Her laugh was sharp, brittle. "You scared me." I forced a small smile. "Sorry, dear, I was just going to make more coffee. Want some?" She nodded, eyes darting to the laptop. Sure." I poured the coffee slowly, letting the silence stretch. Every clink of the spoon felt louder than it should have been. Then I said quietly, "Amanda, do you know what hurts the most about betrayal?" She froze. I continued, still stirring my cup. "It's not the lie itself, it's realizing the liar never thought you'd be smart enough to see it." Her face went pale. "You don't know what you mean." I smiled gently, placid. "Ingy," the spoon down. "I think you do." When Daniel came inside an hour later, Amanda was pacing near the window, her nerves unraveling. I was sitting calmly at the table, the same folder from her office laid neatly in front of me. He frowned when he saw it. "Mom, what's this?" I looked up at him, my voice steady. "I went to the bank, Daniel. I know." The color drained from his face. You what?" "I know about the transfers, the forged signature, the company." I held his gaze unwavering. "I know that you used my savings, your father's savings, to build that boutique." Amanda stepped forward quickly. "Wait, it wasn't like that." I raised my hand. "Please don't insult me with explanations. You've already written the story. I'm just reading it now." Daniel sank into the chair across from me, rubbing his temples. "Mom, I swear we were going to tell you. We just needed time." "Time for what?" I asked softly. "To finish taking everything before I noticed?" He flinched. "It wasn't like that." I leaned back, feeling my heart tremble inside my ribs. "Then tell me what it was like, Daniel. Tell me why my name is being erased from a company that was registered with my money." Amanda jumped in, voice trembling. "We didn't erase you. We just needed to move things around for legal reasons. You're still part of it." "Then why?" I said, sliding the printed email across the table. "Does this draft show you transferring ownership entirely to yourself?" Her breath hitched. "You looked through my things?" "I looked through my life, Amanda. The one you were stealing." For a long moment no one spoke. Only the ticking of the wall clock filled the space between us. Daniel finally whispered, "Mom, I didn't know she was doing that." Amanda's head snapped toward him. "Excuse me? Don't you dare put this on me." "So you admit it?" I said quietly. Amanda's eyes flicked to me, Then back to Daniel. "You told me it was fine. You said she doesn't even check her accounts, that it's our future we're investing in." Daniel stood abruptly, running his hands through his hair. "I didn't mean like this. I thought it was all legal." Their voices rose, clashing, both of them desperate to rewrite the story in real time. But I wasn't listening to their words anymore. I was listening to the sound beneath them. Fear, guilt, panic. I sat there calmly, letting them unravel in front of me. When they finally stopped shouting, I spoke softly. "You know," I said, "your father used to say money doesn't change people. It just shows who they really were all along." Daniel turned toward me, eyes glistening. "Mom, please. I didn't mean to hurt you." I nodded slowly. "I know you didn't mean to. But you did." Amanda opened her mouth, but Daniel cut her off. "Just go, Amanda, please." Her face hardened. "So now you're choosing her over me?" He didn't answer. She grabbed her purse and stormed out, the door slamming behind her. The silence that followed was heavy, thick with the kind of sadness that doesn't scream, just lingers. Daniel sank back down, his voice breaking. "Mom, I swear, I was trying to build something for us. You've worked so hard your whole life. I thought if I could make the business work, you'd finally rest." I reached for his hand. "And you thought stealing from me would give me peace?" Tears filled his eyes. "I didn't think of it that way. I thought I could fix everything before you noticed. Amanda said we'd pay you back once it took off." I looked at him for a long time. He wasn't lying now, I could tell. He was broken, ashamed, but still trying to justify it. The child in him couldn't face the full weight of what he'd done. I sighed softly. "Daniel, I would have given you every dollar if you just asked. But you didn't ask. You took—" His shoulders shook. "I'm sorry, Mom," I nodded, but my heart felt heavy. Sorry is a start, but it's not the end. He stayed quiet for the rest of the day. I could hear him pacing in his room that night, whispering on the phone, maybe to Amanda, maybe to no one. I didn't care. I'd already made my decision. The next morning I went back to the bank, this time with all my documents. I froze the account, flagged the forged signatures, and reported the unauthorized transfers. It hurt not just because of what it meant for him, but because it felt like I was cutting a thread between us. When I came home, Daniel was sitting at the table, eyes red. "I know you went to the bank," he said quietly. "Yes," I replied. "They called. Said they're starting an investigation." I nodded. "That's what happens when someone commits fraud." He looked at me not as a son looks at his mother, but as a man who finally sees the consequence of his choices. "They'll question me." "I know," I said. "Tell them the truth." He swallowed hard. "Amanda won't—" "That's her burden to carry," I said softly. "Not yours." He dropped his gaze, and for a long moment, we just sat there. No anger, no shouting, just grief, old, tired grief that comes when love and disappointment share the same space. That night, I sat by my window, staring at the quiet street outside. The moonlight touched the curtains, soft and pale. I whispered to myself, "This is what motherhood feels like, giving everything, and still being the one who has to clean up the mess." And even then, I knew this wasn't over yet. The following week moved like a slow storm, quiet, heavy, and full of small tremors, the kind you feel before the thunder hits. Amanda didn't come home after that day. Her side of the closet stayed empty, the scent of her perfume lingering like a ghost. Daniel barely spoke. He went to work, came home, and sat in silence, sometimes staring at the floor, sometimes at me, as if trying to figure out whether I was still his mother or just another person he'd disappointed. And yet, somewhere deep inside, I still loved him. A mother's love doesn't evaporate, it hardens, it reshapes, but it never disappears. I started keeping a notebook, dates, conversations, account numbers. Lily, my friend at the bank, told me to document everything. "Even if you decide not to press charges, Margaret," she said, "you'll want the truth written down somewhere, for yourself." So I wrote, every lie, every transaction, every little thing I'd ignored in the name of love. It became my way of breathing ink instead of tears. A few days later, I received a call from an investigator at the bank. His voice was polite, professional but careful. Mrs. Lawson, we've reviewed the documents you submitted. It appears your signature was indeed forged on several transactions. We'll be pursuing this as a case of financial fraud. I closed my eyes, letting that sink in. And my son? We understand the situation is sensitive, he said gently. We'll need to interview him. But since the funds originated from your account, you're legally protected. Nothing will move without your consent. My chest tightened. Protected. That word felt foreign, as if it belonged to another kind of woman, one who hadn't spent her life protecting everyone else. That evening, Daniel came into the kitchen while I was chopping onions. "Mom," he said, voice low, "the bank called me. I didn't look up. I know. They said there's a case open. They want me to give a statement." I nodded. "That's the procedure." He leaned against the counter, his voice cracking. "You reported me." "I reported what happened," I said quietly. "You just happened to be part of it." His breath hitched. "You don't understand, Mom. If this goes through, I could lose everything, my job, my reputation." I finally looked at him. "And what did you think I lost, Daniel? My savings, my peace, my trust in you?" He didn't answer. He just sank onto a chair, running his hands through his hair. I wiped my hands, set the knife down, and walked over to him. "Listen to me," I said softly. "You're my son. Nothing will ever change that. But being my son doesn't mean I'll let you take advantage of me. Love isn't immunity." He looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. "I don't know how to fix this." "Start with the truth," I said. "Tell the investigators exactly what you did. Not empty, just healing." I opened my notebook and wrote one final line at the bottom of the page. "Forgiveness is not forgetting. It's remembering without reopening the wound." And for the first time in months, I slept through the night. 2 months after the investigation closed, the story finally broke. A small article in the local paper, tucked away between a new bakery opening and a car accident report, carried the headline, "Local business owner arrested for fraudulent financial activity." No names in the title, but inside, halfway down the column, it was all there: Amanda's full name, the company details, and a brief mention of unauthorized access to a private account belonging to a family member. Family member. That was me. It was surreal, seeing our lives printed in black and white. No dramatic photos, no scandalous tone, just facts laid out coldly. Daniel saw it first. He came into the kitchen with a paper folded under his arm, his face pale. "Mom," he said quietly, "it's out." I looked at him, then at the article. My heart didn't race. It didn't even hurt. I just felt a strange calm, the kind that comes when there's nothing left to hide. Over the next few days, the whispers began. At church, in the grocery store, even at the salon. People spoke softly when I walked by, pretending to check their phones or read the cereal labels. Some said I was brave. Others said I was foolish, that I should have kept quiet for the sake of my family's name. But I'd spent too many years silencing myself for appearances. This time, I let them talk. Truth doesn't need defending, it just needs time to breathe. One afternoon, I was walking home from the post office when a familiar voice called out behind me. "Mrs. Lawson?" I turned. It was Mrs. Carter, Amanda's mother. She was a tall woman, elegant even in her grief, her silver hair pinned neatly. Her eyes were red, but steady. "May I have a word?" she asked. We stood under the old oak tree by the sidewalk. The wind carried the scent of rain. She took a shaky breath. "I heard what happened. I wanted to, I don't know, apologize, I suppose." I shook my head softly. "You don't owe me an apology," she swallowed. "She's my daughter, Margaret, and I love her. But what she did, it's unforgivable. I raised her better than that." Her voice broke on the last word, and suddenly she wasn't Amanda's mother, she was just another mother, standing in the wreckage of her child's mistakes. I reached out and touched her hand. We both loved someone who lost their way. That's all there is to it. She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Do you hate her?" I paused. "No. Hate would mean I still carry her inside me. I let her go the day she betrayed my son." She looked at me for a long moment, then whispered, "You're stronger than I am." I smiled faintly. No, just older. That night, Daniel came home later than usual. He'd gone back to work, slowly rebuilding his reputation. His boss had been understanding. The company had seen the article, but since Daniel had cooperated fully and wasn't charged, they decided to give him another chance. He looked tired but lighter, like the weight was finally starting to lift. "How was your day?" I asked. He smiled. "Not bad." "They moved me to a new department, finance auditing." I raised an eyebrow. "Auditing? After all this?" He chuckled softly. "Yeah, irony, right?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Maybe that's exactly where you're meant to be, watching over numbers the right way this time." He nodded. "I think so too." A week later, I received a letter, handwritten, trembling ink. No return address, but I knew the handwriting before I even opened it. "Amanda?" I sat at the table for a long time, staring at it. My fingers hovered over the envelope, but my heart hesitated. Finally, I opened it. "Hey, Margaret, I know you probably hate me, and I deserve it. I've been in custody for 3 weeks now. I wanted to say I'm sorry, but even that feels too small. I thought I could make a lift. With Daniel, build something real." But I was greedy. I used his love to get what I wanted, and in the process, I destroyed everything. Please tell him I'm sorry, and if he ever forgives me, tell him not to come see me. I don't deserve it. I hope someday you can find peace knowing I did love him in my own broken way. Amanda Datta. I folded the letter back carefully, my hands trembling just slightly. It wasn't closure, but it was acknowledgement, and sometimes that's all you get in this life. Daniel found me sitting there, the letter still open. He looked at it, then at me. "Is that from her?" I nodded. "She says she's sorry." He didn't say anything for a while. Then he whispered, "Do you believe her?" I thought for a moment. "I believe she's sorry for getting caught. But maybe deep down she's also sorry for losing you." He nodded slowly. "I don't think I'll ever forgive her. But I don't hate her either." "That's enough," I said softly. "Hatred keeps you tied to people who don't deserve your heart." The seasons shifted. Autumn came, then winter, soft, quiet, cleansing. The leaves outside turned amber, then brown, then disappeared, and for the first time in years, the house felt peaceful again. Daniel kept his promise. He paid rent, helped around the house, saved money. Some nights, we talked over tea, not about the past, but about plans. He wanted to start a new business one day, something honest, small, grounded, and every time he said that word honest, I smiled. In early December, I received an invitation from the community center. They were hosting a seminar on financial safety for seniors, and the organizer, a young woman named Lila, asked if I'd be willing to speak. At first I laughed. "Me? I'm no expert." But she smiled and said, "You're exactly the kind of person people will listen to. You lived it." So I said yes. The day of the seminar, I stood in front of 20 people all around my age, their eyes kind but wary. I told them everything. How love can blind you, how trust can be misused, how silence can cost you everything. And when I finished, a man in the back raised his hand. "So what did you learn from all this, Mrs. Lawson?" I smiled, thinking of Daniel, of Amanda, of every sleepless night I'd survived. "I learned," I said slowly, "that protecting others is noble, but protecting yourself is necessary. I learned that forgiveness isn't weakness. And most of all, I learned that sometimes losing money is the cheapest price you'll ever pay for finding the truth." The room was quiet. Then, one by one, they began to clap. When I got home that evening, Daniel was waiting with dinner on the table, pasta, my favorite. He grinned shyly. "How was your talk?" I laughed. "Terrifying, but good." He handed me a small box. "I got you something." Inside was a simple silver bracelet. On the inside of the band, engraved in small letters, were the words, "To the woman who saved me from myself." My throat tightened. "Oh, Daniel." He smiled. "You always said love doesn't mean rescue, but sometimes it does mean not giving up." I hugged him, really hugged him, and for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like holding on. It felt like letting go. That night before bed, I looked out the window again. The same moon hung above, silver and calm. But this time it wasn't watching a tragedy, it was watching two people rebuild from the ashes of one. And I whispered, to no one in particular. Sometimes the hardest part of love isn't losing someone. It's staying soft after they break you. A year passed quietly after Amanda's sentencing. 12 months, 365 days sounds like such a small measure of time, but when you're rebuilding trust, it feels like a lifetime. The world moved on, but in small ways, our lives changed forever. Daniel still lived with me for a while, not because he couldn't afford his own place, but because we both needed the quiet, the silence of the mornings, the hum of the kettle, the steady rhythm of days where nothing hurt anymore. He'd started working part-time at a financial literacy nonprofit. It was strange at first, watching him, my son. The same boy who once maxed out my card without blinking, now sitting across from retirees and young families, teaching them how to protect what's theirs. He had found his redemption not in grand gestures, but in small, steady acts. Sometimes I'd stop by the center and watch through the glass doors. He'd be standing there with his sleeves rolled up, talking to a young couple about budgeting, his tone gentle but firm. I'd feel that same ache, not of pain, but of pride. He had changed. And maybe so had I. My own days found new meaning too. After the seminar, I began volunteering with Lila at the community center. Every Wednesday, we'd host a coffee confidence morning, a safe space for older women to talk about things we never used to discuss openly. Bank scams, family disputes, boundaries. It became more than a meeting. It became a circle of healing. I met women who had been lied to, stolen from, silenced. Some had lost children to greed, others to pride. But every one of them had one thing in common: they thought it was their fault. That's what I told them every week. You did nothing wrong by loving deeply. But love without limits can become a leash. And slowly, I saw something shift in their eyes, in mine too. We were learning to love again, differently this time. Sometimes I'd still think of Amanda, not with anger, not even pity, just acknowledgement. Last I heard, she'd been given a reduced sentence after cooperating with the investigation. She'd been working in the prison library, apparently tutoring other inmates. One of the guards, a friend of a friend, told me she rarely talked about her case. But she always wore a small pendant one that Daniel had given her years ago, a tiny silver heart with their initials etched inside. I suppose some pieces of love never truly die. They just stop growing. One evening, as I sat by the window, the same spot where this whole story began, Daniel joined me. He had that faraway look, thoughtful but not sad. "Mom," he said quietly, "I've been thinking about something." "Oh? That sounds dangerous," I teased, and he smiled. "I want to move out. Not far, just across town. I found a little house near the park. It's small, but it feels right." My chest tightened, but I nodded. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." He hesitated. "You sure you'll be okay here alone?" I looked around the living room, the warm lamplight, the plants I'd somehow kept alive, the framed photos that told the story of a life both broken and mended. "I'm not alone," I said softly. "Not anymore." He smiled, that same crooked smile from when he was a boy. "You always say the right thing." I chuckled. "That's because I've said all the wrong ones before." Moving day came 2 weeks later. He packed everything neatly, of course he did, and before leaving, he turned at the door. "Mom," he said, "thank you for not giving up on me." I stepped closer, cupped his face like I used to when he was little, and whispered, "That's what mothers do, Daniel. We don't give up. We just wait for you to come back to yourself." He hugged me tightly, and for the first time in years, it didn't feel like a goodbye. It felt like a new beginning. That night, the house was quiet again, but not empty. Not the kind of silence that hurts. It was the silence of peace. I made myself tea, lit the small candle Daniel had left behind, and opened my journal. I wrote down a single line. "Money can vanish, trust can break. But love, real love, it survives, even if it changes shape." Then I closed the book and let the quiet hold me. Spring came again, soft and green. One morning, I received a postcard, in the mail no return address, just a picture of wildflowers and a few words written in neat handwriting. Thank you for what you taught me. I'm learning to be better. I stared at the card for a long time. No bitterness, no tears. Just a quiet kind of closure. I tucked it into the back of my journal, not as a reminder of pain, but as proof that even broken people can choose to change. Sometimes I think back to that moment, the day my son told his wife, "Honey, take Mom's card, there's 130,000 on it." Back then it felt like the start of a nightmare. But now, when I remember it, I realize it was actually the start of something else, a reckoning. Not just with money or betrayal, but with the kind of love that blinds us, and the kind that finally opens our eyes, because here's the truth I learned the hard way. When someone uses your kindness against you, the answer isn't to stop being kind. It's to learn who deserves the parts of you that are kind. I'm older now, wiser, maybe. I still bake too much on Sundays. I still talk to the moon sometimes. And when I check my wallet, my bank card, my accounts, I do it not out of fear, but awareness. Because being aware doesn't mean you've lost trust. It just means you've learned how to protect it. That's my story. Not of money lost, but of worth regained. Not of betrayal, but of awakening. And not of revenge, but of release. You know, sometimes I still think about that night, the one where everything started. My son's voice, so full of pride, saying, "Honey, take Mom's card, there's 130,000 on it. Treat yourself." If I close my eyes, I can still hear the innocence in his tone. He truly believed love and generosity could never hurt anyone. But life has a way of teaching lessons in the spaces where we least expect them. I used to think money was what measured security, a full account, a solid home, something tucked away just in case. But now, I see that the real currency in life is trust, and once it's spent recklessly, it takes years to earn back. Amanda taught me that. Daniel taught me that. And time-patient, unhurried time reminded me that forgiveness isn't a gift you give someone else. It's a quiet mercy you give yourself. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you love, if you've ever handed your heart to someone and watched them mishandle it, please don't let that make you bitter. Let it make you wiser. Bitterness builds walls. Wisdom builds boundaries. There's a difference. When I sit by my window now, I don't look for who hurt me. I look for what healed me. The sound of the kettle, the laughter of neighbors, my son's newfound steadiness, and the peace that comes from knowing I survived something I never thought I could. So, if you're listening to my story tonight, wondering what to do after someone betrays your trust, here's my advice. Take your time, protect your peace, and remember, you can lose everything you own and still keep the most valuable thing you have, your ability to love again.